podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to It's Only a Game podcast. My name is Greg. We're in for a jam-packed episode this episode. But first of all, Jimmy, Deck and Matt, none of them are available this evening. So it's up to me to do the customary Jimmy Driver podcast introduction. So I'll give it a go. It won't be as good as Jimmy's. In the week of football, which very much was, we had the Angry Birds fixture in the Premier League, which saw the Seagulls against the Magpies. Giuseppe's high-flying Seagulls convincingly beat the Magpies with a Ferguson hat-trick. The sky truly is the limit for the Seagulls, it would seem. Meanwhile, at the Emirates, it was snap, crackle and pop, with Rice scoring late, a goal to take all the spoils for Arsenal at the Emirates, leaving Man United looking a little bit grainy, you could say. The Saudi money couldn't tempt Salah away from Liverpool this transfer window. He's been involved in 10 goals as of late. Can Liverpool keep up the unbeaten run? Possibly. We're not too sure. But this brings me on to my guest for this evening. Happy to introduce one of the good friends, Femi, Liverpool fan. How are you doing, Fem? You okay?
Yes, I'm doing great, thanks.
Fantastic. So, you caught some of the highlights of the Liverpool Aston Villa game. What was your overall take from that performance and the score, would you say?
Yes, I was very happy with the performance. We won 3-0. I was surprised that we kept a clean sheet because we had no Van Dijk and we didn't play with Endo, who's our most defensive-minded midfielder. But it was good. Like, Salah could have had a hat-trick of assists. Núñez was dangerous, but he didn't score. Szoboszlai got his first goal, which is a screamer. So overall, really good. And with Gomez coming in for Van Dijk, keeping the clean sheet, I felt that ticked a lot of boxes. So that was a really good performance by Liverpool.
I was listening to a Liverpool podcast just this afternoon, just before I'm making my tea, and I can't remember which one it was, but I'll try and find it. And they were saying that they were more pleased with the start of the performance, the start of the game, getting the early goal, which sort of led to a sort of bit of it was a comfortable beginning almost. Whereas I think they were trying to suggest that some games last season it took them a while possibly to get going, or they wouldn't score early on. Do you think that's possibly the case for this game, that they've got the early goal and puts everything at ease possibly a little bit more? Or
And so, to be fair, I think yes, like sometimes we haven't started the best, and then we have to really try hard to catch up in the game. But I think that all goes back to the defence. So normally it's like a defensive mix-up or defensive mistake, or people, like, because of the style of play before, where we used both fullbacks high up, people would just overload on Trent's side. So I felt that was more to do with the bad start. So now with Trent a bit more in midfield, like, felt he controlled the game. His long passes, switches were really good. So yes, I felt it was a really good performance and enjoyed Salah getting a goal, Núñez being dangerous. Yeah, Szoboszlai's goal. What a first goal! Like, and that's on this week of foot.
Yeah. I saw that before on the highlights. I was like, my word, that is a good goal. It just instinct. I think that was just pure instinct, wasn't it, to hit it and go with that. We briefly spoke about Salah. So he's been involved in 10 goals. Is that right? And the last is that a goal every game, or is that two every? Is there any pattern to that, or?
So I think, yeah, his goal contributions, I think, his last 10, but that makes sense because as well as being a goal scorer, Salah's also a great creator as well, and particularly in pre-season, he linked up quite well with Núñez. So I'm not surprised that he's kept that form up.
I almost sensed during the watching the highlights that. Even though I knew he had scored before watching the highlights, I had a feeling that you could just tell that we're building, it were coming, Salah's goal. like he was bombing it down the wing, and then he was crossing in, and he was doing such a thing, and you just almost felt that it was inevitable that he would make a contribution to the game. Do you think it's quite? Is it quite telling that he's turned down the offers that have been rumoured from Saudi Arabia? Do you think that's because there's quite a lot of high-profile players that have gone over there, haven't they? Obviously, we know Ronaldo's there. Benzema is it Neymar? Is he over there now? Do you think it's a testament to Salah to stay at Liverpool?
So I think, to be fair, Salah has only just signed, like it was about a year ago or 1.5 years ago that he signed his latest contract with Liverpool. So I think that's a huge element. And I think personally he wants to chase some goal records. So I think at the moment he's like top 10 in the Liverpool goal scorers, and so he wants to move up in those lists. So if he stays another 2 seasons, he can reach top 3. And then also the other part is that hypothetically, if Liverpool had to let him go, you can't have a direct replacement, and so you would need to buy a few players to make up for that. And the bid was way too late, in my opinion, if they really wanted Salah.
Got you. I'm quite pleased that he stayed. To be honest, I understand money is is king. Really, it's quite important money. But I find it quite a testament to Salah that he's sort of staying at Liverpool, because I don't know, I would miss watching him every weekend. I know the Saudi Arabia League, it's not out there as much on YouTube or any Sky channels, not just yet, or maybe I haven't noticed it. Possibly, I'm not too sure. But I'm glad that Salah, we get to see him every week on television and Match of the Day or Sky Sports. Just looking at Aston Villa, they had a decent season last season. I think they just about edged Europe, didn't they? They were in the European competition this year. Were you surprised by their performance, knowing that they've crept into Europe for this season, or do you think it was just Liverpool were too good for them, or?
So I think they've been a little bit hot and cold this season, but I do think their summer signings have been really good. So Diaby, getting Tielemans on a free, these are really good signings. They're playing Diaby up front with Watkins, so that's quite tasty. So I think, to be honest, in the games that they've lost this season, I just feel like they're better sides with better players. But the rest of the teams, I think they should beat, because they definitely got the quality. So with Douglas Luiz, with Pau Torres, Cash, these are Konsa, these are really good players. And so I expect them to challenge for the top 6 this season.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the... they've not done too bad, have they? I think they've... let's have a look at their recent fixtures. Here we go. So yeah, they beat Burnley, didn't they? They beat not Aston Villa. Aston Villa beat Burnley, and they beat Everton. Was it 4-0 early in the season? I think it was 4-0. Yeah. So they're not doing too bad. So I think they can probably build on something maybe next week or the next fixture, something like that. And obviously they're in Europe this year. Myself and Jimmy and the other lads were talking about that could be a winnable competition for them if they were to sort of focus on one or the other, or they're in there, they're definitely in there. They might as well have some sort of focus on that. So yeah, Villa, it was they were. As I was watching the Liverpool highlights, I thought they were quite convincing. Liverpool, I know obviously Villa, they're not a Sheffield United or a Luton who have just come up or anything like that. They're a solid side, aren't they, really, Aston Villa? So it could have been a tricky game. Who've Liverpool got next, Fem?
And so let me have a quick check. But with Liverpool, so we've got Wolves next, and it's the first. It's the lunchtime kickoff after the international.
At Molineux as well.
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't really know how Wolves are doing. Are they a bit all over the place?
So they've had a strange summer, actually, because basically they had to get rid of lots of players due to FFP. So they sold Neves to Saudi Arabia. They released Adama Traore. I think they got rid of Hal Matinho. So these are really quality players that have done well for Wolves over the years, and they've hardly paid any fees for their players. Only Cunha, which was done on the loan deal, and most of them have been frees. And then Doyle has come in on loan, I think, turning into a signing because Man City got Matheus Nunes. So yeah, they've been really hamstruck, and then that's one of the reasons why the former Spanish manager left.
Because he left quite late in the pre-season, didn't he? Was it like a week to go or a week and a half to go to the season starts, or?
Yeah, it was around that time. So what I think happened is that when he first went into the role, and the Wolves board said, okay, if you help us survive, help us play good football, we'll give you some money in the summer. But what happened was that they had to sell some players, and then they said basically that, oh, you can only do free transfers, and there's a limit to the amount of free transfers you can do. So he felt that was too big a task. Even though they've got some nice, good players like Fabio Silva, Matheus Cunha, like, I have to admit, their display against Man U was really good, and bar the Onana foul, it would have been 1-1. Like, they should have beaten Man U if they had better finishes, but like, I think Gary O'Neill is a good appointment, and he's worked with a limited budget before, so I think Wolves are in good hands.
It's interesting with Wolves because obviously you get that type of setup at like lower league teams in terms of like limited budgets or one arm tied behind the back and things like that are sort of holding it back a little bit with Wolves. You see that with different teams, like in the Championship and lower down. So it's an interesting one for Wolves. So yeah, that's the Saturday midday kickoff, isn't it? Wolves, Liverpool. How do you think you'll fare against Wolves? Is it a tricky game, or do you think it should be straightforward?
So I think with Liverpool this season, I think it's got a potential to be a tricky game, but Liverpool's attack is so good, in my opinion, that it's enough to beat teams like Wolves. So it's like, if you remember the 13-14 Brendan Rodgers team, I think we're not going to play as attacking as that, but I think it'll be along those lines because we've only got one defensive midfield player and we can't play him for 60 games this season. So I think it's going to be lots of creative midfielders and attackers, and Jota rotating, Gakpo rotating, Diaz, Salah, Nunes. Like, these are 5 like top players in my opinion. So that, I think most games we should beat the teams just based on the attack alone.
Got you. That's I agree. I would agree with that, absolutely. We've just touched on something before we press record about the transfer window, didn't we, Fam? Did Liverpool manage to get anybody in during the transfer window before it closed? Sorry.
And so yes, we got this young Dutch player called Raven Gravenberch. So he's a former Ajax player, but he went to Bayern Munich last season. It didn't work out. He didn't have much opportunities, but I feel hopeful for him. He's a box-to-box midfielder. His stature is similar to Yaya Toure, so 6'3", can run box-to-box, can pass. He's a little bit raw, but I think he's in the right hands because Klopp is very good at developing players, and he's got his Dutch compatriots with Gakpo and Virgil van Dijk to help settle him in. So I think he's in good hands, and with Liverpool being in the Europa League, he should get a decent amount of minutes.
That's a good point, actually, because I suppose if he's got the Dutch teammates with him, he's got that connection, he's got that understanding, he could probably bed in a little bit easier, possibly, than if they weren't there. I don't know if that would be a thing or not. Is he the only player that got in Liverpool on the closing deadline?
Yes, on the deadline day, yes. Yeah. But earlier in the summer, we got McAllister, Endo, and Szoboszlai. Yes. It was a total midfield rebuild, so that's why I'm very optimistic. I still think we needed one more defensive-minded defensive midfielder, but I think the bulk of the midfield is done. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I know we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. We spoke about Henderson going to Saudi Arabia, didn't we? And I thought he was. I thought you could have still played him basically, and I think you suggested that he's not worth keeping. So do you think that's a good thing that he's actually left Liverpool so that you can free up a space to give somebody else a chance possibly? Do you think would that be the case with Henderson?
Yes, so I actually think Szoboszlai is actually the Henderson replacement. So the new style of players, we want more creative midfielders. So Szoboszlai is really good at set pieces. He's got a great first touch, ball striking, can pass, can shoot. And because he's like 21, 22, very energetic. He used to play for Salzburg. We bought him from Leipzig, so those teams are very famous for their type of pressing. So he's a very good presser that way. And so, yes, I think Henderson was a great servant for Liverpool. But the issues Liverpool had last season was the midfield was a bit too old and slow. And so basically, when they went to press, they would miss their press, and then the opponents would go into where Trent is, or they were in a run where their attackers could go in. So I think it was best. I know I briefly heard a little bit about Henderson's interview. He felt that he wasn't wanted, but I feel like, to be fair, he had a really good run at Liverpool. He basically played regular football for over 10 years, and so to not be a starter this time when the issues were due to not just him but like older players in the midfield, I think it's fair, and most people probably would think Szoboszlai is an upgrade for right now.
Yeah. See, I can't remember how old Henderson is. Is he 34, 35?
Yeah, he's about 33, 34, which is old.
Yeah,
which is old for a midfielder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's about right, that, isn't it? In terms of, like you say, he's been there for 10 years. He's won quite a few trophies. He probably wasn't going to start every week or consistently anyway. So it sounds about right. Yeah. I think it was the right choice, really, to... and I suppose he's not going to complain, is he, for the money that he's on in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, he's claimed that he's not on that money, but
really?
but he's definitely on an upgrade.
Oh, he's got to be. Why else would he be going there? He's not going there for any other reason.
He's claimed that he hasn't. He's claimed that it wasn't for monetary purposes in his interviews, right?
Who's he kidding? He's kidding.
So yeah.
Oh man, is he? Is it Gerrard? Is it Gerrard's team?
Yes, Gerrard's the manager. Oh, wow. And also he brought his former teammate Gini Wijnaldum. So that's the.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so right. They're both playing in the same team now. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, I can't believe Henderson's saying he's not gone for the money.
He literally released the interview yesterday. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that. Oh dear me. Oh yeah, super. So Liverpool, you just missed out on Champions League last year. You're in the Europa League this year. Do you think that's something that you could? It's an achievable trophy to win. Do you think this time round for the circumstances that you're in that one? Do you think you can possibly go and try to win that one?
Yes, so with the Europa League, I think with the best way to approach the Europa League is almost to have 2 11s, so one for the Premier League, one for the Europa League. So in the Europa League, that'll be good for your Harvey Elliott's, your Curtis Joneses, the Raven Gravenberches, those younger players, so they get their minutes in. Even Kelleher, the Irish goalkeeper, I think it's good for that. And then maybe in the latter stages where maybe a Champions League team has dropped out, that's when you play your Salahs, because things are starting to get quite serious.
That's a good way of thinking about it, actually, because you do see a lot of elite teams with a few 11s. Man City do it, don't they? They've got a few. You could almost they could almost play another 11 the next week, possibly. Well, I have seen that. Yeah. So I'm just looking at the league, the Premier League before we hit the record button, and it's quite evident that Brighton are doing well. I don't mind Brighton. What are your thoughts on Brighton, Fem? Do you think they're an exciting team. Even though you're a Liverpool fan, do you mind Brighton doing well? Obviously, they're not Man United, they're not Arsenal, they're not
No,
an
not at all.
historical.
Like, I think Brighton are a really good side. Like,
Yeah,
I think their recruitment is really good. That the De Zerbi style of football is really good. So basically, in like Understat, which is like a table that shows the XG and the expected goals and expected goals conceded. So basically, they're almost top for both. So like really,
wow.
really exciting goal wise, but could be leaky the other end as well. And one thing that I'm really looking forward to is they've got Ansu Fati on loan. So
Yes.
so he's supposed to be Messi's heir. So a really talented
Wow.
footballer, but it's had his injury problems.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see if what magic De Zerbi can do with him.
What do you think? What do you think lured that particular player into Brighton? Do you think was there anything specific that he thought this is the club for me? There's anything there? Do you think?
Yes, so I think a Brighton play attacking football, and also they are great at developing young players. So it's a no-brainer if you're a young player who wants to develop, get the minutes, do well. Like I think it's a no-brainer. I think Brighton are almost like turning to be the English version of Ajax in terms of the developing young players playing attacking football. I think they're heading in that direction.
It's interesting. We've had there's a Brighton podcast called Albion Obsessed that we've had them on with us. And Jimmy's been on their podcast, and some of the players that they rhyme off that they've had what's his name? Is it Glenn? Not Glenn Murray?
They've had Glenn Murray.
Yeah, Glenn Murray. Yeah, Glenn Murray. Sanchez. They used to have Sanchez. He used to play for Rochdale. Glenn Murray used to play for Rochdale. So I can relate to them as a club that they're not this sort of mega power just yet, and they're doing it, I would say, the right way in terms of getting these players that I've seen over the years, the past 12 years, Glenn Murray's and things like that. And you think, wow, that's quite a story that they haven't gone. Like you could say, like Newcastle or another team that sometimes throw money at it. I don't think Brighton are actually doing that. They've got like a strategy where they're building on such a performance and different players and different tactics. And it's like last season they beat quite a lot of the top sides last season. You think, Christ, they did well, and then they're in Europe. I touched on it briefly in the intro that they've got quite a good group in their European adventures. I think they've got Ajax and I can't remember the other two, but I was looking at it thinking, my word, that's quite a good group. Let me just try and find Brighton. Where are we? AKA Athens, I think is one of them, and Marseille is another one. So that's quite. If you're a Brighton fan and you've got Ajax, Athens, and Marseille away, you're taking that, aren't you? I think, Fem.
Yeah, I think the Brighton fans should be really excited today. They play really good attacking football, and the recruitment strategy is in place, and that's both in players and managers. Because if you remember, like Graham Potter was doing a fantastic job. Then they recruited De Zerbi that took it to the next level. And then, like, even more exciting is that with the Casiedo money, let's just hypothetically say Brighton are challenging the top 4 in January. Yeah. They've got that money to invest if they want to as well.
It's a credit, really, to the club, I think, because it's like the players that have left, like you're on about the lad that's gone to Chelsea. Obviously, he was the other one. Sanchez, goalkeeper's left. And a lot of teams that are in this, like in the mould of Brighton, that can hinder them. I've seen it before. Like I can't think of a team off the top of my head, but where a few players have left, it really can disrupt everything, and it can really send them off kilter. But it doesn't seem like it's happening for Brighton. It seems like they've either got a replacement or somebody else can play in that role, or they just seem to be cracking on regardless of losing these players that obviously got them to the European competition this season. But how do you think that is possible, Fem, for a club of like Brighton's stature, that they can lose these players that were maybe vital last season, but it doesn't seem to be affecting them this season, that they're not there anymore?
Yes, so I watched a YouTube video about this, and actually it's just because they buy, so it's called like a buy-to-loan model. So basically they buy lots of young talent for cheap fees, and then part of it is they loan them to certain clubs that develop them, and then they bring them back to Brighton, give them minutes, make sure they're cultured. So I would say, like, beforehand, like previously, like in years gone by, Southampton were a similar team, but then I felt like they oversold and they didn't get replacements of as good a qualities. But I think with Brighton this season in particular, that like even though they've lost Cassiano and McAllister, they got Dahoud, Gilmore was already playing, getting Ansu Fati on loan, and knowing that you've got 100 million, and then even though I don't wish Brighton to sell their players, knowing that Ferguson would easily be sold over 100 million as well, so they're in a really great position.
Yeah. It's good. I enjoy watching them, and it's you're looking at some of the scores this season already. Obviously, they beat Newcastle at the weekend 3-1, beat Wolves 4-1, and I think Luton 4-1. Yes, yeah. And they've got quite a challenging. Well, I don't know if it is a challenging game thinking about it, but they've got Man United at the weekend at Old Trafford. I fancy them to get something from that game. I don't know if you're in the same boat there, Fem. Do you think they could get something at Old Trafford?
Yes, so the attacking football can definitely cause Man U problems, but I'm just not, how to explain, I don't think they're as solid as before, because Colwell went back to Chelsea, so I felt that he was a really key part to their build-up and like their defence. So even though, I definitely think attacking-wise it can cause Man U problems, and so I think, definitely. I'll put it this way: I wouldn't be surprised if they got a draw and scored a few goals against Man U.
Just going back to the Europa League, that they're in. Do you think it's possible? How would you look at that in terms of Brighton being in that competition? Would you look at it in terms of just enjoy the ride against Ajax and Marseille and Athens, or do you think let's get far as possible? What do you think they can do there, Brighton?
So I think Brighton are gonna go for it, because I remember from last season where when Brighton beat Man U, like they did an interview with De Zerbi, and he said that he wants to keep on pushing. So he's the type of manager that be saying, let's not rest on our laurels. We actually want to go really far in this competition.
And it's good to hear, really, because some clubs will get to a certain point and go, we're okay here, let's just stay here. And I think I've got an example of that. I think that happened to Bolton a few years ago. I think they hit a certain ceiling, and whether it's true or not, I'm not too sure. So I'll say allegedly, I think Big Sam said, if you give me more money, I will get into the top four. Whether he would have done, I don't know. But I think Bolton were basically just saying, no, we're good here. We're all right here. We don't need to be going in the top four, because of that comes with more money, contracts for players and things like that. So it's good to hear that, Brighton, they don't want to just settle for, this will be a nice little trip to Ajax. It's, let's take Ajax on, let's try and go as far as we can in the competition. It's not just, we're okay here type of thing. There's a topic actually that we haven't discussed on the podcast. We've completely we haven't actually mentioned that Harry Kane has gone to Bayern Munich. So I don't know how we haven't managed to talk about that one, but Jimmy must have missed that one off. It's just come to me. What's your opinion on that, Fem? In terms of Tottenham, they seem to be doing okay without him, and Kane was quite a vital player, wasn't he, in his time at Tottenham?
Yeah, so I think like Kane has done his best for Tottenham. He's been there, he's an academy player, scored lots of goals, probably in their top 3 for top goal scoring. So he's done as much as he can. They haven't won any trophies while he's there. So I think it was the right decision to let him leave for Bayern and let him win trophies there. And then also from my understanding about the Postecoglou style of play, is that he likes his strikers more on the last shoulder of the defence. So even though Kane's a great player, he wasn't an exact fit to that style. And so they're scoring lots of goals. And it's interesting seeing Son play as a 9, as he got a hat-trick at the weekend just gone.
It's quite a strange affair, isn't it, that Tottenham Kane transfer was I don't know. I think people sort of expected Tottenham to struggle after Kane, and I don't know. Quite a lot of people did expect that, I think. And then it seemed to. It might work out for the pair of them. It might work out for Tottenham going forward, and it might work out for Kane at Bayern Munich. He's most likely going to win a trophy at Bayern Munich, and Tottenham. One of my friends, me and Shell's one of our friends. He's from Burnley, but he's a Tottenham fan. And I was talking to him about 2 weeks ago. Well, a few weeks ago, and he said, "Yeah, it doesn't seem to be that we're just focusing on Kane. It's like we have a different plan every whatever. We have more than that to our ability at the minute, which they might have done before, but it did seem to be sort of centered more around Kane." And he said, "Yeah, we've got different. It's completely different now that Kane's gone, and he sort of wasn't expecting that." So I wonder if Tottenham fans are a bit surprised that they're in this position. Do you think, Fem?
So, like, with the Postecoglou style, like, I think it's more to spread the goals round, not to have a 30-goal striker. But also, what I would say is that, in my opinion, with Kane or no Kane, they couldn't have done worse than last season. So they finished 8th, like, no trophy. Like, for me, they couldn't have done worse. So it could have only got better. And so that's why I'm personally not surprised. I think, like, Spurs fans may have been surprised because they were wondering, oh, how's this going to work without Kane? Because it's like, you know, in anything in life, it's like when there's some change, people are not sure how it's going to go. And so I think it's a bit of that. But, the style of football is a lot more fluid. Like, he likes his wings to hug the touchline as much as possible. Like, inverted fullbacks. Udogi's been playing well. And Maddison is really, really enjoying that freedom. He's been on fire this season.
I mean, I'm just looking at the fixtures that they've played, and I think they're unbeaten. Tottenham, they've got, so they've got a draw, win, draw. Oh, that's the EFL Cup, and then they beat Burnley 5-2. You mentioned Maddison there, Fem. They got him from Leicester, didn't they? Leicester got relegated. That's quite a signing at the moment, isn't it? The Maddison signing. Were you surprised about that particular signing sort of paying off, or do you think was it to be expected because he's quite a good player anyway? Or
so I think Maddison has always been productive even at Leicester. So I actually think he's a bargain. Like, in my opinion, he's better than Mason Mount. So I think
I agree.
I think Mason Mount is. I think didn't Man U buy him for 60 or 70 million? Maddison was 40 million. And he probably scores more goals and assists. He can play as an 8. He can play as a 10. He can also play, as a playmaker on the right. So I am surprised that Tottenham were the only team that seemed to be in for him. Like, I would have said a team like Newcastle could do with him, because I felt like Newcastle don't really have a creative spark too much, bar Trippier. So I felt like, he's definitely a player. He probably, I would have loved to play like that at Liverpool, but I think we've already covered that with McAllister and Szoboszlai. But definitely at Tottenham, Man U, I would argue he's better than Mount. And then even if they wanted to, City, because they play with a number 10, and Maddison mainly likes to play as a number 10, he would have done really well at City. Not saying he's like the top. He's world class, but I'm saying in terms of fit, style of play, I felt like he could really fit in a team like City as well. So I am surprised not as many people were interested in him. I would say Chelsea, in my opinion, despite spending all that money, they are pretty much no creators there. And so he in my opinion, Chelsea should have gone in for him straight away.
It's interesting what you say about Maddison, and he could have fit into the system at Man City, because I think Jim ran about a couple of months ago. He was saying that some of the Man City team aren't necessarily world class. Like, Grealish possibly isn't. Well, I wouldn't say he is world class, but he seems to fit that system of whatever they're doing, whatever the tactic that Pep wants to do. He seems to be a duck in water in that. Really, seems to work. And I think Maddison I think that could have worked for Maddison as well as Grealish, in terms of they're not these Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, elite players, but if you put them into this sort of setup, they seem to thrive. Some of them, and I think that I agree with that. That could have been the case with Maddison, and people might have laughed and said, "Oh, he's not this and he's not that," but you don't necessarily need a world-class player in every position. Like United didn't need it years ago. Liverpool didn't need world-class players years ago to win the Champions League. There were a few in there that weren't world-class that did the job and you won the trophy. Do you know? So I think Maddison probably falls into that for now anyway, obviously, that he's not this world-class player. But if you put him into a setup that works, he's going to get results for you, I think, really. And that's the proof of the pudding so far. I know we're only a month gone in the season, but that's how it looks so far, at least. I think there was something. Oh, Kane at Bayern Munich, yes. So yeah, it's a good move. I wasn't necessarily expecting it. Were you, Fem? I don't know if you were expecting Kane to go so late.
So I'm got a subscription with The Athletic, so I could see all the latest articles. So I was expecting him to move. And funny you should say this actually, because just before the start of the season, I had Kane in my fantasy team, and basically Kane and Salah are the exact same price. So as soon as Kane was starting to leave, I had to swap him and then rejig my team to fit in Salah because they're both the same price.
I'm sure I had Kane. No, I had the Fulham striker that's gone to Saudi Arabia.
Mitrovic.
Yes, I had. I think I was texting you the other week about what do I do with this squad because I had Mitrovic, Kevin De Bruyne are injured, McAllister was on a red card. John Stones was injured. That's 4. I think he had 5. I think he had 4 injured players and 1 red card. I thought, no, let's just use the wild card straight away. But we'll get on to that actually, Fem. Fantasy football. We've been texting pretty much every weekend, haven't we, about what we should do. Your suggestions, sticking Salah in there. So you're pretty happy with your team so far, aren't you, on the fantasy football? Have you got any? Is there any sort of pattern developing that you go, he has to stay in, or is there any formula to yours?
So this season I've been playing mainly a 4-4-2 system because I saw it does well on the average amount of points quite well. So I've been trying to test with that. And my current team has got Fleck and Turner, Estupiñán, Chilwell, Ikanji, Baldock, Guardiola, Saka, Matomo, Salah, Anderson, Maddison, who I just got in last weekend, and Jackson, Sims, because there's a unhidden rule that if you get a player that's transferred out, that locks the price, and then of course Haaland.
Yes. No, it's we've got a fantasy football league at work, and I think there's 15 people in it, and 13 of them have Haaland as captain. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, it's quite fun. I never used to. I used to do fantasy football when we were at uni, and then after uni, I sort of went off it, and now I've come back into it the past 2 years. Well, COVID onwards, possibly. But it's addictive. I don't know why it's so addictive, but I've got it on my phone on the app, and I go, he needs to go. I need to get rid of him. I can't get rid of him yet. And then I'm looking at the fixtures, and there's something new that I've never seen before, which is the. Does it give you the fixture difficulties?
Yes, it gives you the fixture difficulties, and now, as well, they say XG for different players as well.
Sorry about that. I just needed to close the window. There were dogs barking outside. Yeah, that's a new one for me. The difficulty. I'm just trying to find it now on my app.
But also it depends how you interpret it. So for example, let's just say teams playing Liverpool, they'll mark it as a 4 or a 5 in the hardest. And I would actually argue if you're an attacker, you might get some joy against Liverpool. So keep your attacker on. That's what I would say.
Yeah. It's interesting because there were players that I was thinking of getting rid of, and I thought, I think I might get rid of him. And then you look at the. I was convinced last week that Chelsea were going to beat Forest. I think I was convinced by that. So I had Sanchez, Chilwell, and somebody else. But then I'm looking at Chelsea's fixtures, and it's all green or grey. So you've got Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Fulham, Burnley, and then they've got Arsenal, and then it's red. So I was thinking, oh, well, I might just keep a few of them in there just because of this this graph, basically. But it's a game changer, really, looking at things like this. And then you can I'm looking at Liverpool's. Obviously, you've got Wolves, West Ham. They're both green. And you've got Tottenham and I think it's Brighton that are both grey. Everton green, Forest green, Luton green. So you've got quite a decent run there where it doesn't seem to be anything in red, which makes me think I should get more Liverpool players in. But it's quite interesting that in the long term I can look at what can I be doing in 3 weeks with this team, or something like that. But it's great. I'm addicted to it, and it's that was one I was going to ask you actually. What happens? You got your captain, but what about the vice captain? Do they get like an extra point or extra 2 points or anything? Or?
Okay, so basically your captain gets double the points, but your vice captain, it's if your captain doesn't play, that's why you have a vice captain.
Ah, right.
So if your captain doesn't play, then your vice captain gets double the points. And then if they both don't play, then it's tough luck.
Quite good though.
So is there any fancy players that have surprised you this season so far?
Yes. Who was the? Let's just have a quick look. I've got the podcast league up. Actually, I've got the It's Only a Game podcast league. I'm just gonna have a quick look at see who's doing quite well. So a few people that we don't know, but Brian Forbes is second. His I like his team name, Judy Harland. I quite like that. Matt Driver is fourth. I think you're up there, Fem. Oh, you're 10th. You're doing quite well. You're 10th. There's like 44 people in this league, and you're 10th. That's quite good. James Hendry's in there as well. Hannah, a few others. Just have a quick look at Brian's team. That was it. I was looking at Brian's team the other week, and he had Sterling as captain. And I don't know where that came from. Was that something that a few fantasy football sort of fans, or like yourself or Brian, sort of predicted to give Sterling the captaincy? Was that anything that was sort of circulating or anything there?
Not necessarily. But I think because like seeing his thing, like because they were playing Luton, that was a decent way to do it. So
got you.
So I think most players, if they're playing, most people that are playing Luton might fancy captaining their player, but it also depends on who Haaland is playing. So for example, when Haaland was playing Newcastle, I think Salah was playing Bournemouth, and so I captained Salah instead of Haaland because that was the better fixture.
Yes. It's interesting. There's certain like patterns that develop sometimes. You think, oh, I'll stick him in there, Because I used to go for 5 in midfield. I used to go 5 in midfield and 3 at the back and 2 up front. And I'm looking at other people's teams. And I was looking at yours the other day, and yours is, I think you did. You might have changed it, but it might have been someone else's team. But then there were 4 at the back. I was thinking, why have they done that? Then it were the clean sheets, and then it were Ake got a goal, and you think, I got it now. Some of the points add up for defenders more, things like that. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm back into fantasy football. I went off it for about a couple of years, but I'm always texting you out of FM. What should I do with this team?
Yeah, definitely. And then one player that I haven't got yet, who I'm thinking of, is Awani of Nottingham Forest. Like he's been scoring.
Okay.
He's been scoring lots of. So he almost broke the Vardy record for consecutive goals in the Premier League. And plays for Nottingham Forest. He got an assist last weekend, and he's so far he's scored against Sheffield United. He scored against Sheffield United, Arsenal, Man U, and got an assist against Chelsea. So he's pretty solid, to be honest.
Oh well, then they're all solid sides, aren't they? Really. It's that's interesting. I might have to nick that one off you, but yeah, that's interesting, and they do develop patterns. Some of these players, and you go, I'm gonna have to stick him in there. It's interesting. Just talking about United and Arsenal. We'll touch on the Arsenal Man United game, fam. Did you Did you watch any of the highlights from the 3-1 game at the weekend?
Yeah,
Or
so
did you watch
I watched it on Sky Sports, like the majority of the game. So I have a good feel for that game. So yeah.
Good. It was well, I was keeping tabs of it on my app because we were out at the time, and I thought it was going to be 1-1, and obviously Rice and Jesus late goals. You would have watched it in real time. Was that the did they just collapse Man United, or was it a bit of luck from Arsenal, or what was the what did you take? From
No,
that
there was a bit of drama actually. So actually, it could have been 2-1 Man U, but then VAR cancelled it, and then basically with the Rice goal, it came from a corner where I don't know why, but Rice was kept on getting free at the back post, and this time he had enough time to control it and smash it at the near post.
Right.
And then obviously because Man U are going for the game, they're pushing everyone up, and then Arsenal substitute Fabio Vieira does a through ball to Gabriel Jesus. He's through and goal. Dallo is like catching him up, and then he pauses, and Dallo has done a slide tackle into midair, and then he scores against Nana. So like, yeah, it was a great goal. I felt like Arsenal just about deserved the win, but Man U were always dangerous on the break, and like I still think the VAR decision was debatable because I don't know. Like if you see the highlight, basically what happens is in order to like catch somebody offside, Gabriel has just leaned back. He's like gone forward and leaned back really quickly to catch the guy offside. But like depending on like where you think, if you think the line is straight or not. So for me, like he looked just on, but then when VAR got the lines off, they put him offside. But other people on Twitter have put their own lines and said that they're not straight. So who knows at this stage?
It's interesting. It's I saw the Rice goal, and it seemed like it came off the leg of a Man United player, but I wasn't too sure if it did. Did it come off a United player, the Rice goal?
So I think what happened was it might have had a slight deflection, but it was going in, and so basically, I think it also touched Onana's hand, but he couldn't get a strong enough hand to get it out. So I wouldn't call that the fault of the goalkeeper because it was a very strong shot. I'd say it was more about the defending because in corners, nobody really should have enough time to actually chest it, turn, and take a shot in a corner.
Well, there is that. That's
point, so I felt it was more on a defensive side that it was the fault rather than Onana. But to be fair, like Gabriel of Arsenal did a clever block off on Johnny Evans, so he couldn't chase to get the ball. So that's part of it as well.
Wow, I saw the Jesus goal as well, the third one. I thought it was absolutely great goal. I don't know. As soon as the ball, you could see it developing. As soon as it was coming up the field towards him, and you could tell what was going to happen. And he sort of, I don't know what he did. He did a bit of a crafty move, didn't he, where he took the player the other way and then kept going, I think. But yeah, I didn't know he was going to be back so quickly, because I know you mentioned about putting him in the fantasy football team at one point, that he would be back soon, and I missed that one, that he was actually back, or else I would have put him in. But maybe I put him in now. But yeah, he's a great player, isn't he? He's fantastic, and I think he's found himself at Arsenal, hasn't he? A little bit more than he was at Man City, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was at Man City.
Yes, he was. Yeah, of course. I'd have to second guess myself there, but yeah, he was at Man City. I think he's found himself at Arsenal. Do you think there's any particular reason why he's found himself at Arsenal? Is it Arteta? Or is it being in London, or is there anything?
So I think it's like Arteta's because Arteta used to be the Manchester City assistant manager, so he's used that relationship to get both Gabriel Jesus and Shevchenko, and then just said to Gabriel Jesus, "You're gonna be our main number 9," and so you know how players love to be loved, and so from that he's playing his number 9 pretty much. Whenever he's fully fit, he plays him. So that's quite good. He plays as a number 9, but he likes to drop deep. So he's almost like a number 9 playing as a false 9. But he really joins up the play, really good. So yeah, I think the signing's been good, and so when you're getting regular minutes, so I think one of the, even though Pep is a world class manager, one of the greatest, like I do think like he rubs players the wrong way because he's always rotating.
Yes, I agree with that. Sometimes it might have been the documentary, the City one. I can't remember what it's called. I think I saw it on there. I was thinking, I don't know if he's doing it for the cameras or if he's winding people up. But there's parts of Pep Guardiola, and I go, does he need to be doing that sometimes? And I think it was the Burnley game when City played Burnley, the first game of the Premier League this season, and he was sort of berating Haaland as they were coming off the field, and I thought, is that necessary, really? And I don't know if it was because the cameras were there or what. I don't know. But there are parts of Pep Guardiola, and I go, come on now, like do you need to be doing that? But like you say, he's a top class manager, one of the best ever. But there's still little niggles with him that I find, do you need to be doing that? I don't know if you're like that, Fem, with him.
So I don't mind like the what's it called, like the methods are like in terms of speaking to players, but I do think like not every player is going to take it easy knowing that he's going to be rotated. So for example with Cancelo, that's the reason why he's gone on loan to both Bayern last season and Barcelona this season, because he wants regular minutes, and every footballer wants regular minutes, particularly if they're doing well in training and stuff. So to tell you how much he like rotates, right? Put it this way: in fantasy football last season, no Man City defender got over 100 points.
Oh, right. And they won the league.
Yeah.
Treble, even.
Yeah, so like their defense was the best in the league, but they didn't get that amount of points because sometimes they don't get the clean sheets because they occasionally concede one. But because he kept on rotating all those defenders, none of them got over 100 points. If you click on the history of any Man City defender for last season, you'll see none of them got over 100 points, even John Stones.
Wow. So that's almost as if... Wow, so you can't really... I suppose they don't know if they're when they're playing and when they're not, in terms of if it's rotating that much, or is it to do with how many players they've got in defence, or I don't know.
So it's a bit different because last season, mid-season, he's basically decided to play with 4 centre backs.
Yes.
So Akanji, Diaz, Laporte, Ake. That's like an example of a 4, but and then in some games he'll bring in Kyle Walker if he wants more width on the right. So all that rotation, like like some players are being some players are being rotated. Or for example, another example about rotation is that even Man City fans might not want to hear this, but I think at some point Phil Foden is going to have to leave in order to get full minutes, like in terms of played like 50 games a season, week in, week out.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, because I mean there were teams in yesteryear that were heavily rotated, but like Ferguson used to rotate Andy Cole, Dwight York, who were the other two, Sheringham and Solskjaer. They were rotated quite a lot, but he seemed to keep them quite happy, didn't he? The 4 of them, obviously different times, a couple of years ago, that isn't it now? So it is possible to keep players happy and rotate them and keep them happy. But I think you're right in terms of if you are because he's still fairly young, isn't he, Foden? He's not like 26 or something like that, is he?
No, he's about 23, 24 now.
He's 23, yeah. So I suppose if he wants to, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, really? Because if he wants to be successful, he could probably stay at Man City. But is he playing week in, week out? He might not be doing. So it is a tough one. And I suppose with him being so young as well, you do want to be playing week in, week out. It's okay if, like, you're on about Jordan Henderson before, in terms of he probably would expect not to be playing every week because of his age, and that he'd been there for 10 years, and he's 30, what have you, he's at least 32, wasn't he, at least, Henderson. So I suppose if you are that age, you could expect that, to not be playing every week. And like Ronaldo was kicking up a fuss, wasn't he, last season, that he wasn't playing every week, but he's 30, he was way over 35, wasn't he? But it's different aspirations, isn't it, and things like that. But with Foden, I think you bang on the money with that one. I think if he wants to play week in, week out, you probably do need to leave Man City, as much as it's they are this big club at the moment in terms of trophies and what they're achieving and things like that. But I don't know where would you go that could possibly like emulate what they are doing. I don't know if it's could you go like Bayern Munich, or would you stay in the Premier League if you Phil Foden?
So there's nowhere that emulates Pep Guardiola's football, I would say.
No.
But I would say, like, if there's ever a time that Liverpool sold Salah, it probably won't happen, but I would love Liverpool to put a serious bid in for Foden and say, you're playing on the right week in, week out, you can pass the ball, you can run behind, you can finish, and say, there you go.
And it's not unusual, is it, to have transfers between Liverpool and Man City these days, even though, what was his name, Raheem Sterling, obviously. Did he go from City to Liverpool, or was it Liverpool to City? I can't remember.
So he went from Liverpool to City, and then later on he actually went from City to Chelsea. So the problem with what City has got, maybe not as much so with the Saudi Arabian League, is that the only rich clubs are really Premier League clubs. So if you want to sell someone, it's got to be normally to a Premier League club. But with the Saudi Arabian League, that has slightly changed. But that still remains most of it. So if, for example, if a big player was to leave Man City, they would have to pretty much go to another Premier League or Saudi. That's why, for example, Cancelo didn't leave on a permanent deal because Barcelona can't afford the fee attached to it.
Crikey, what is going on at Barcelona at the minute? I know you're on about the young lad that's signed for Brighton recently on loan. Is it because they can't keep these players? Is that what it is with Barcelona?
So with Barcelona, like with my understanding, like the Spanish league's FFP rules are very strict. So, for example, if you don't have your money together, you can't actually register your player. So basically, Spanish teams are doing financial deals so they can actually register their player. So, So, for example, let's just say a squad is of 25. Like, if a club is not in order financially, then you could have a squad of 20, not 25, because of all their financial fair play. So that's with that one. And from a cash flow point of view, maybe Real Madrid, and then the Premier League clubs could really buy, those a Man City player if they were to leave.
It's interesting because I remember we did a podcast last pre-season, not this one just gone, but the other one, when Barcelona just signed the lad from Bayern Munich, Lewandowski, and Jimmy was questioning how is that possible, and then they signed somebody else. He said, how is it working this that there's different constraints in La Liga for Barcelona? How are they still signing these players? But they're still doing it, aren't they? I guess it's still. What's his name from Man City signed for Barcelona, the midfielder Gundogan. So I don't know how they're going to get round these rules to keep these players. Do you know?
So with Gundogan, that was a free transfer.
Of course,
and then with Cancelo was a loan deal with what's it called? João Felix. That was a loan deal as well. So they're hardly putting any fees in, and then I think to finance their deal was in the last summer, not this summer just gone. They had to get like almost like a private equity firm and borrow a loan against them. But then that didn't work as well because it was like they were anticipating to qualify for the Champions League knockout stages, and they didn't do it, and so that's left them in more financial mess as well. So
wow, it's interesting that a team like Barcelona are doing these things in terms of, I don't know. It's sort of you would think a team of Barcelona's caliber wouldn't need to be doing these things, but it's probably come back to haunt them a little bit, hasn't it? Some of these rules and regulations and overspending or not spending, and it's within the guidelines and trying to keeping those rules, isn't it? I guess for Barcelona. How do you think they'll get on this season, Barcelona? Obviously, they're a big club, aren't they? Big expectations from the fans and supporters of Barcelona. How do you think they'll get on?
So I think they should it would be between them and Real Madrid to win the league.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll win the Champions League. But
No.
they've got they're really keeping up with their youth prospects, La Masia. So Gavi and Pedri is now playing, and then they've got this. I'm not sure his name, but basically they've got a young winger who's only 16, who's just got his Spain call up at 16.
Blimey.
Let me find his name. Yeah. So
no
his name's called Lamane Yamal. It was very interesting actually, because I was seeing him in the pre-season against Spurs, like seeing the highlights. I thought, oh, this could be a good player, but I didn't think they'll chucking him straight away in the league, starting all 3 games, and then him being called up to Spain, which is a bit mad, to be honest, for a 16-year-old.
Is that Spain's first team?
Yeah, Spain's first team at 16.
Wow. Oh, right. Okay. Wow. I bet you weren't expecting that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like straight in.
Good Lord. It's good to see, though. It's very good. It's great to see. You're always looking for the young players to... he could be one that lasts, for years and years, because I think there was a statistic a couple of weeks ago when they were doing the Champions League draw. I think this is the first time, is it in 20 years or 21 years, that the Champions League hasn't had Ronaldo or Messi. And I was thinking, crikey, that goes to the longevity of Messi and Ronaldo, doesn't it? I thought, my word. And you don't think, do you, sometimes, that they've been around that long, some of them. So he could be the next one. The 16-year-old could be here for the next 20 odd years. You never know. But that was a statistic that really made me feel old. That was like, Ronaldo, Champions League, first time without Ronaldo and Messi in 20 years. It's like, my word, gosh. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'll jump back to Liverpool for a little bit, Fem, and then we'll look at wrapping up the episode, if that's okay with you. We'll just have a couple of 4 or 5 minutes. I can't believe we've done an hour already. That's flown by. What are your expectations for Liverpool this season in terms of the Premier League? You got the FA Cup, you got the Europe. You're in all the competitions there, League Cup as well. What would your sort of minimum expectation be for Liverpool?
So minimum expectation would be top 4. And I would love top 4 and Europa League. So minimum top 4, because Champions League. So because I feel like because Salah, Alisson, Van Dijk are all getting on a bit, I feel like if we're not in the Champions League, it's a waste of those talents, because they're really good players, and I love us to get a squad together to actually challenge City again. So I do think another defensive midfielder is key to that. So I'm saying top 4, maybe a challenge to the title, but top 4 I think is bare minimum. I would say Liverpool have had a bad season if we do not get top 4 this season.
That's interesting. And then obviously FA Cup and League Cup, are they just a bit of a bonus if that's possible, do you think?
Yes, it's a bit of a bonus. So we've won those before. I think a couple of seasons ago we won both in the same season. So a bit different. Yeah. So because there was, I think a couple of seasons ago we're in for the quadruple, in terms of we went to the final of every single competition. So top 4 minimum. FA Cup would be nice to have. League Cup would be nice to have, but really want the Europa League. Because I think it would, if Liverpool were to win the Europa League, I feel that it would really enhance the experience of the young players. Them getting minutes, them playing a vital role in winning a big trophy. I feel that would be really good.
And I suppose you can build on that for next season. You can build on trophies. Trophies, obviously you're on about top 4 as well. You got the Champions League. I suppose I can see where you're coming from in terms of. I was having this debate with somebody at work the other day about how important is the League Cup, and they were like, it's not that important really. A trophy is a trophy, fair enough, but it's not like a priority type of thing. It's just there, isn't it? Really. But I think you make a good point about the European League that you're on about there in terms of winning that. I don't know if there's any. I don't know how many in terms of big teams are in that one this year. Is there any like real threat that could really knock Liverpool in that competition this season? I can't remember who's qualified for that one.
I'm not sure. Ajax are in it.
Like, would it be you?
Of
course.
But
yeah.
I would say like because part of the Champions League is normally some of the Champions League teams drop out into the Europa League.
Yeah,
so that normally happens. So with Europa League, that's why I'm saying it'll be good to win it. And then talking about trophies, about whether the FA Cup or League Cup's important, I think because Liverpool have won it in the past, like a couple of seasons ago, it doesn't matter. But like for example, if I was a team like Tottenham, I would put 100% behind it because they haven't won a trophy for about 15 years. Yeah. So I would absolutely go 100% in it. That's what I would say.
It's interesting because was it last year? It was Man United Newcastle. I really wanted Newcastle to win the League Cup. I don't think it would have because they haven't won anything in such a long time, Newcastle, and I think that's the same for Tottenham. There's a few teams like that, obviously, that haven't won anything for a long time. West Ham was up until recently, up until last season. I didn't particularly mind that West Ham won that the European League last season. But I don't know if that me and Jimmy had this debate or this conversation a couple of weeks ago about if you are a team that hasn't necessarily won a trophy for quite some time, like Newcastle, like Tottenham or West Ham, there's maybe somebody else in there, Villa possibly. Do they become more like, say if you're a neutral, where say you don't particularly mind Newcastle and you don't mind West Ham? If say Man United are playing West Ham, do you automatically want the team that hasn't won the trophy for a long time to win it, do you think?
So, as a Liverpool fan, any team...
against United, would. It's a ridiculous question.
But
maybe let's say Chelsea then.
Okay. So, I think so. But, like, what's it called? Talking about West Ham, they're actually, like, my most local team to me. Basically, when they won the Europa Conference League, they made, like... Not in a negative way, but they made a big thing about it. So basically, Stratford, which is like 15 minutes train away from me, they like booked like a bus parade there for their fans, and so that was really good for their fans, and like I don't think they had won something for 40 years, so that was really nice for their fans, right. And like the local pubs near me were a bit more cheery, more jolly, let's say. It's really good for the fans. So I think when you win something for the fans and they've been deprived of winning, then it matters a lot more. It's like that's what I would say. Yeah,
it's I can understand that one, because I think Rochdale have never won anything in 112 years. We've never won anything. So we've been to like playoff finals. We've been promoted, but obviously you don't win anything for being promoted. Oh, I think you win a little cup, don't you, or something. But in terms of like, we've never won an FA Cup or anything like that. So I think we could, it's never going to happen, but we'd love to win something someday. I mean, even if we win the conference, that'd be good. But I can understand what you mean by that, where teams that have never won anything or for a long time, it's just great for them to have those moments, because you see like Man City at Wembley every year, or not every year, but maybe every other year or every year. Well, no, it is every year for Man City. Like one of my mates, he's like, I'm not going to Wembley because I've been for the past 3 years or something. They've sort of not outgrown it, but they don't see the value.
Yeah, they've probably got a fatigue about it.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it is. So that, I think some of the Man City fans, some of them are going through that in terms of, I've been to Wembley, I've seen 3 times we've lifted the FA League Cup. I think it was the League Cup. Did they win it 4 times on the bounce or something like that? And there is a fatigue to that for them. So I think when there's a team like you say, like West Ham, or even if Newcastle were to win something, it sort of freshens it up a little bit. Leicester won the FA Cup, didn't they, a few years ago now? That was quite entertaining. I didn't mind that. We need more of that, I think, Fem. I think we need more of the teams that haven't won a lot historically. If they can win cups now and again, I think we'll take that just to keep everyone happy. Oh, so on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this episode. We've done well there. We've done 1 hour and 9 minutes. That's quite good to say. There's only 2 of us there, Fem. So I'd just like to thank you, Fem, for joining us for this episode. We'll have you on next time. Well, whenever really. We'll try and get Jim and try and get a few more of us on the next episode. But thanks for joining me, Fem.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Don't take football too seriously, because it is only a game. Thank you for everybody for listening to us, and good night.
Sports Social Podcast Network.